My name is Dr. Stephen Jones. As an organizational psychologist and executive coach, I love to study what allows people to bring out the best in themselves and others. So join me as I welcome top leaders to uncover the future of leadership. Welcome to the LeaderSHYFT Secret Podcast, where top leaders reveal insights earned, wisdom gained, and transformational moments that have defined and redefined their leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Jones, and today's guest has been given the distinction of being named a super lawyer, not just a lawyer, a local and global powerhouse, and a person who is passionate about developing the future STEM leaders of America and the world. My guest today is the amazing Vicki Turner. Welcome, Vicki. Welcome to the LeaderSHYFT Secret Podcast.
Thank you. I am honored to be here.
We are honored to have you big time. Let me tell you a little bit more about our guest. So, Vicki was born in Gainesville, Georgia. Now, a fun fact, Vicki attended 13 schools by the time she got to high school. She's a named partner at Wilson Turner Kosmo, the largest certified woman-owned firm in San Diego. She's been selected as one of the most influential attorneys in America and received the Lifetime Achievement Award presented for lifelong commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteer service by President Joe Biden. Honored twice as the San Diego Product Liability Defense Lawyer of the Year, Vicki is an independent director for Endeavor Bank and the UCSD Foundation Board of Trustees. Vicki is passionate about developing future STEM leaders and is co-founder and chairs the Links to STEM program. Junior Achievement inducted Vicki into their Business Hall of Fame as a lifetime laureate. Vicki has received the 2025 Cora T. Walker Outstanding Attorney Award from the National Bar Association Commercial Law Section, and she has been named as one of the top 50 Black leaders of influence by the San Diego Business Journal and the Black Chamber of Commerce here in San Diego. She and her late husband raised 3 amazing sons. And let me just say, that is just a snippet of the amazing influence and impact of Vicki Turner. Thank you, Vicki, and welcome to the LeaderSHYFT Secret Podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, excellent. So let's start off by talking about, what is your passion for leadership?
You know, I think in terms of my life,
yes,
leadership has been a journey, not one that I started out seeking or attempting to find, but more one that found me, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think of myself as a servant leader, a reluctant servant leader.
Okay.
Meaning many times the things that I have decided to lead or ultimately led was a result of something that I felt needed to be changed or needed to be addressed. Sometimes people would see something in me that I didn't even see in myself that would propel me forward in that leadership journey. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When my children were young, they were very much interested in STEM, and I would take them to various activities, and I would look around the room and say, where are the students that look like me, that look like my children?
Yes.
Not seeing a program like that, I decided to start
Links to STEM
again.
is an amazing program designed for 4th through 8th grade students to introduce them to STEM at an early age. We believe that it's important for a student to have the basic science and math foundation in order to pursue STEM as a career or as a major in college.
But now, 12 years later, I'm very proud of what I have led in that regard. Similarly, with my law firm, very happy. I'd worked for the same huge law firm for 16 years, but thought maybe I could do it a little differently. Maybe there's more of a compassionate way to lead a law firm. And so I joined a law firm where we could change the dynamic where I could lead in a different manner.
Okay.
And I'm very proud of what we developed.
Very good.
So again, a servant leader.
Very good. And I hear the reluctant leader part that says you didn't start out with the intention to lead. You looked at the need and then the lead.
Absolutely.
Right, and took the lead, yes?
Absolutely. Deciding where I thought I could best make an impact, and then leading into whatever that impact is.
Okay, this is our first LeaderSHYFT secret that I want to name, is to look for where they can best make an impact, right?
Yes.
And then move to action.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a journey, because you don't always know exactly where you can make your impact, but you start off and you make decisions, and it goes up and down, and then along the way you adjust as you go along.
Okay, okay. Very good, very good. What are 2 to 3, as you've taken that journey, 2 to 3 ingredients that you would say you've learned along the way to be effective as a leader on that journey?
I think the most important thing that I've learned is that I'm not going to take the journey alone.
Okay.
And that I can't. And what I mean by that is, I think what is most important about my leadership style is collaboration.
Okay.
I am never going to be the smartest person in the room. That's not my desire. What my desire is to build a foundation, a group around me that can collaborate with me, that will understand where I'm trying to go, will be inspired and motivated to move my vision or our shared vision into action, which then results in reality. So to me, most of what I do dealing with any form of leadership is to bring people along who are like-minded sometimes, not always like-minded,
Okay.
but people who are willing to contribute, to challenge, and to move forward.
Got it. Collaboration. What are some of the things that you look for when you're deciding who to bring in to collaborate with?
To me, it's somebody who's willing to share their vision, share their thoughts with me, and to challenge whatever I'm thinking or wanting. I don't want anyone who's just going to say, oh, Vicki, that's a great idea, and we're going to run with it. I want to give you a really good example of that. In our law firm, we were working on a huge project, and I had in my mind, my team, this is how we're going to do it. And we probably would have done that. We brought in a young lawyer. Didn't really even know her because she'd only been with us for a couple of months. And she said at one of my weekly meetings, because one of the other things that I insist upon is working as a team, that we meet and we talk about what we're going to do. It may be my vision. I may have a plan, but I want to know what everyone in the room has to say. And I conclude all of my meetings by saying, what have I missed? What do we need to talk about? So she, kind of quietly says, I have another idea, a different approach. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't really know you, but let me hear it. And she gave her idea, and it was very unique. And I thought, don't know if that's really going to work, but I am open to considering it. And so she wrote it up, sent the proposal. We evaluated it, sent it to the client. The client said, oh, don't know if that's going to work. But the client said, you can try it, and we'll see what happens, because it was a little bit novel. Long story short, we tried it. Great result in court. Completely changed the dynamic of where we were going. And it was all because we listened to that little voice that we didn't really know. So I sort of have a hard time saying, who do you bring into the room?
Yes.
Because you don't always know.
That's good.
And it sometimes is trial and error.
And you were willing to move forward on an idea that you totally, I won't say didn't necessarily agree with, but you weren't thinking this is the solution, I guess is my point.
Yeah, and it wasn't a matter of not agreeing with it. It was a matter of I didn't understand it.
Okay.
It was an entirely different approach that I had seen used in other settings, but not in this one. And I was having a hard time visualizing how it was going to be effective in this setting.
Okay.
And I wasn't the only one. The client then sent our idea to another firm to evaluate, and they said, well, I don't know. Everyone was kind of hesitant.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it was that new, novel willingness to try something that was bold,
Yes.
that hadn't been done before, that made the difference. And didn't matter that wasn't my idea, because I think it's important that you allow your team, and this is going to sound strange, but you allow your team to fail within moderation.
Yes.
Meaning, in this situation, if our idea had not worked, then there always was time to go back to plan A that I had originally.
Right.
So I think it was important for everyone in the room to say, okay, if I have an idea, I should bring it forward. And it will be, she's going to listen, and maybe it will be the right strategy.
So good. There's the, do I agree with it, one filter. Do I understand it, another filter. Right? And to work to be clear about which takes some self-awareness.
It does. It does.
Talk a little bit about that self-awareness piece.
I look at it this way. I think you have to take ego out of it when you are trying to lead. And there's a certain level of understanding who you are and having confidence in who you are that I don't feel challenged if someone disagrees.
Okay.
Or if someone has an additional idea to add to mine, or thinks that maybe we should go in a different direction. I think that makes us stronger. And I also think that it makes the people that are working with you feel empowered.
Yes.
And the stronger your group feels, the better work product we typically have, the better the organization and stronger the organization is. And I always look at it this way. If we can make the organization strong, ultimately it's making us as individuals stronger. So people have more job satisfaction. They have more satisfaction working with you. I look at people that I worked with over the years, and we maintain amazing relationships even after the work is done, or I'm no longer at that particular location. I'm still friends with my very first secretary and some of the paralegals who worked with me over the years, because there is a level of respect in that collaboration. When I tell you something, you can trust what I'm saying. My style is very direct, which can be a little bit difficult at times. But at the same time, you know exactly where I'm coming from when I'm talking to you.
Very good. Let's talk about that direct style. I'm thinking people don't see it coming when you come with a direct style. Is that your experience?
Oh, that is so true. And I think the funny thing, and I've heard this over and over, is I will say something, and it's usually with a smile, no matter what it is, and people will later say, you know, you really told them exactly what you thought, but you did it so pleasantly. You can say things to people and really be honest with them, as long as they believe you're not doing it out of ill will and it's not, vindictive. It's how you deliver information to people to help motivate them, to make them do better. I want to give you an example. I was talking to one of our STEM students, a 7th grader recently, and I said, how are you enjoying the program? Because he just didn't seem like he was that motivated to be involved. And he said, well, I like it, but you're always mad at me. And I said, no. I am not mad at you at all. What I'm trying to do is to get you to bring out more of yourself. Yes. I know there's so much more that you have to give. Good. But I'm not seeing it. And that's why I'm constantly calling your name, asking you questions, trying to bring you into the fold, because you can be so much better than you're being today. I looked at his face and he just lit up. It was just a different way of understanding the attempt to motivate.
Yeah, it's so good. So the part of that leadership mindset is at times to see things in people that they have yet to present or to perform at that level.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. To meet people where they are. Absolutely.
That's so good. And to take them to where they could be and are not there yet.
Yes, that is very, very true. It seems strange, but even I think people who are viewed as leaders need that. So I wear this really simple little bracelet on my arm. And people always say, kind of, what is that? But on the inside of it, it has it's inscribed, and it says that you are braver than you believe, and you are stronger than you seem, and you're smarter than you think.
Wow.
Because everyone needs that encouragement, that motivation. You don't get up every day and say, okay, I'm going to go out and do something fabulous. You're just trying to get through each and every day.
That's right. That's right.
And part of that may include leadership, and part of it may not.
Okay, read that again. Say that again, because you quoted it, you cited it. Could you say that? I think that's just so powerful.
It says you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And that's all it says. And, when I have those moments when I'm thinking, what am I doing? How did I get here? How am I going to do or accomplish something? Sometimes I just look at my little bracelet and say those words.
That's so good. And so with all of your accomplishments and titles and so on and so forth, there are still moments where you find yourself going, "What? How did I get here? Like from Gainesville to here."
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that space.
Well, I think that's sort of, and you had mentioned this to me at one point, sort of what's not on your resume.
Yes.
Because there is so much that goes into who you actually are that's never written down. That's really, to me, the better story.
Yes.
And for me, the better story is starting in that small town in Gainesville and having an amazing family, absolutely amazing family, that I know some of my family probably doesn't even know that I'm an attorney. Most of them certainly don't know about the accomplishments, if we call them that, because it doesn't matter.
That's right.
What matters is, I am Vickie Turner. I am the granddaughter of Mama Ruby and Daddy John, and the daughter of, Asbury and Rebecca Turner. That's what matters to them, and the person that they know and the soul that I exhibit when I am with them. So to me, coming from a family where we are going to have our 103rd family reunion in Huntsville, Alabama, actually, in June, that is what helps to motivate me and keep me going. And then looking out at people who are depending upon me, whether it's in the STEM program, whether it was people who worked with me in various organizations or in my law firm, and knowing that they had the same desires, the same dreams for their families that I had for mine, helped to motivate me to move forward. But it's amazing. I think relationships are so important. I am still friends with some of my best friends from the 7th grade. We still get together, and we support each other because at the end of the day, they know me almost as well as I know myself. And that truly helps, I think. You have to have a good foundation. And then couple that with mentorship as you move forward. And as I always tell children, everyone who comes with you can't go with you. And you think about that because there are certain people who in your life for a certain period for a reason, and sometimes as you are on that journey, they're not always able to go with you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I am stuck at the soul of the leader, because that's part of what I heard in what you said that says when I'm at that over a century of family reunions, folks are looking at what's the soul of the person, right? So different than the title that the person holds, right? Or the accomplishments that the person has achieved, or the awards that the person has won. Can you talk a little bit more about that soul of the leader?
Sure. I look at the wonderful awards and opportunities that I've had as just that. But part of, I think, what has gotten me there and what has been a good experience with other people started a long time ago. It started with just understanding who I am and being comfortable in that role. And you develop into that because for years I was extremely quiet. And people who know me now think, well, when was that? But there was a time when I felt like I had to be quiet in the room and that everyone else knew what they were talking about. And I've often learned now that the loudest voice in the room is usually not the one who knows the most.
I heard that.
But it also just starts from understanding that you are a good person and you are trying to do the right thing. You may not always do the right thing, but you're trying to do the right thing. And people understanding that and believing and seeing that in you.
Yeah, that's powerful. And so the myth that folks have around the leader is the most charismatic person in the room, who's taking up the most space in the room. You're just busting that wide open.
Yeah, it's not been my experience.
Okay.
My experience has been, look out for the quiet ones, the ones who are sitting there and thinking about whatever was just said. I was on a Zoom call just last week, and we were talking about some fairly heavy issues, and someone said, Vicki, you're not saying anything. You're sitting there looking concerned. And I said, I am. I agree with everything that's being said, but I am trying to think 2 steps beyond where we are to how we get where we want to be, as opposed to just focusing on the problem.
Right.
Because that, to me, is what a leader does.
Yes.
We all can identify the problem. How do we strategize to get beyond it?
Yeah. So in your role as the super lawyer, you have, I would imagine, gained an understanding of people and the way that people think and move. And my question would be, what is 1 or 2 things that you have learned about people in leadership roles?
Okay, one of the things that I've learned is that you can't always determine what a person is really thinking by what they say. As strange as that may sound, body language and actually watching what they are doing beyond the verbal comments is very significant to really determining leadership in a person. And part of that starts with just how you relate to people in general. And what I mean by that is even with, for example, when I was selecting juries, it wasn't just how they answered the questions, the body language, the words they use, the shifting, the eyes, all of that goes into really evaluating a person. The same is true when you're dealing with leaders.
Right.
There's so much more than just what a person says.
Yes.
And I would rather judge a person by what they do rather than what they say any day.
Got it. Okay, that's powerful, Vicki. I find myself not wanting to move. But it's the whole person.
It is the whole person.
Right? And what is it? Your actions are speaking so loud, I can't hear a word you're saying?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And just simple body language is very important in a room. We always heard the term read the room.
Yes.
We all hear that.
Yeah.
But there are ways to read a room and read a person. And I can tell you, some people say I have a tell.
Okay.
And that is when I am understanding and listening to you, but whatever you're saying is surprising me, or perhaps I'm not totally agreeing with it.
Okay.
And I understand that I flutter my eyes rapidly.
I'll be watching out for that.
I have worked on not doing that because I would be a horrible poker player if I have such a tell. But there are times when I have to tell myself, stop moving your eyes.
Very good. Well, we all have a tell, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Very good. Let's talk about failures, learning from mistakes, setbacks. How have you managed those? How do you think it's important for leaders to manage and process?
Yeah, so I look at failures and setbacks as different, believe it or not.
Okay.
So I have had setbacks, and those I just look at as challenges. A good example was I never intended to be a product liability lawyer. My intention when I go back to high school was, frankly, to go to college and do something in the medical field. And I'll tell you a little bit about my high school experience. My high school counselor told me that I wasn't college material, that I should go to vocational school. I had absolutely no negative connotations with going to vocational school, but that wasn't the plan I had for my life. But it did take me off my trajectory for a minute. And so when I finished high school, I was announcing I'm not going to college. And my parents were actually very cool. They said, fine, you get a job.
Okay.
So I got a job. I was a dictaphone secretary, and I was transcribing tapes that the real estate agents were taping as they were driving. And I would hear noises, road noise, beep sounds, lots of words I couldn't understand because it was just drowned out by the sounds around the cars when they were driving. So I would type up what I heard. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. And I was severely chastised for not doing a good job. And I thought, this isn't my destiny. Yeah. In 4 weeks, I left that job and went to college.
Okay.
Took my full ride to college. And moved on, again with the idea that I was going to do something in medical field. Got an internship, worked in the hospital, went down to take blood in the ICU, and realized that wasn't my calling either. Okay. Took the blood back to the laboratory, put it down, and left. Never returned. Changed my major immediately. Okay. Again, it's sort of defining and learning yourself and knowing the challenges that are going to change the direction that you are going in. I just looked at it as a challenge or somewhat of a setback to what I'd always planned to do. Ended up finishing in accounting. That was my undergraduate degree, and thinking, okay, I'm going to be an accountant. Didn't pass the original CPA bar. The first time I took the CPA exam, I thought, this is really not for me. Okay. My plan from that, I'll call it setback, was changed. So I worked for a couple of years as an accountant looking for another opportunity to do something else, because that setback was not going to change me from doing and finding who I really needed to be. Didn't enjoy being an accountant. It was fine, but it wasn't really my calling. Talking to a friend, sort of bemoaning my fate, and he said, try law school. I had never considered being a lawyer, never met a lawyer, didn't know anything about going to law school. Came down to San Diego, spent a little time because he was in law school, just going to a couple of classes with him, and I thought, this is my calling. Went home, didn't have a dime to go to law school, didn't know what I was doing, took the LSAT, did well enough, applied to one law school, not understanding how difficult it was to get into law school. Got into law school, had no money, and got a full ride to go to USD. So I will always be forever grateful to the institution. But also, it was that original not becoming a CPA that led me to what I really needed and wanted to do, which was to become a lawyer. Then fast forward, I'm graduating from law school, another setback or challenge. I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. That was what I went to law school to be. Very few people know that. But my last year, I got the offer I wanted to go to Washington, D.C. and work in the Civil Rights Division, Department of Justice. I'm on my way mentally. Well, President Reagan had a different idea. And his idea was that he was going to fold the Civil Rights Division into the Civil Division, and my offer was changed to just do civil. Well, if I was going to do civil, I could stay here in San Diego and work for a firm. I had already clerked for a firm during the summer and had an offer there as well. So my plan of becoming a civil rights lawyer changed to staying here in San Diego, doing civil work, and becoming a product liability lawyer, because something unforeseen happened and I couldn't move in the direction that I wanted. I look at all of those things. They may have been setbacks, but they really propelled me to be the person that I was supposed to be, because I believe I am right where I'm supposed to be. I may not have been able to see that, but that is where I am.
Wow. That's just a phenomenal journey, right? But the idea of continuing to move forward, right? And I'm hearing an awareness of looking to find what feels like it's yours.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and I think there's another element to that, because people often ask for me to speak to students and to tell them about my journey. Well, my journey was not exactly one-dimensional. So it's the one thing that I do tell students is whatever you're doing, you have to be prepared for it. I didn't know necessarily I was going to get to go to college, but I had the grades and the activities to warrant a full ride to college.
Yes.
I didn't know I was going to get to go to law school.
good.
Wasn't even in my thought process. But I did well enough in college and then
Yes.
with the LSAT to be able to get into law school.
Yes.
So preparation
There you go.
for the unknown and faith that preparation will lead you somewhere
Yes.
are two of the vital, I think, combinations to moving
I
forward.
love that. Preparation, and I'm hearing performance.
Yes.
Right. And delivering almost across wherever you find yourself,
Yes.
because you never know what your next step is going to be, but staying open to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I think a good example of that is my service on the Endeavor Bank Board.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about how to run a bank, how to manage a bank. When I was first approached about serving on the board, I did my homework, realized what an amazing group of people were actually running the bank, from the board to the executives, and realized that I could learn. If you have a desire, you have a basic background in something, I do have a degree in accounting, people will help you to help you learn, but you have to put the time and the effort in. So the first couple of board meetings, I'm writing down all the acronyms. Oh my goodness, there's so many acronyms in banking. But I would take the time to go and learn, or to ask other board members to ask, how does this work, until I really felt like I had a good handle on it. And now I feel comfortable in the board meetings, and I'm not challenged by it. Now I just think this was just another opportunity to go out there and see a different dimension, something else that's challenging, but certainly a welcome opportunity.
Yes, very good, very good. And a big part of your passion that you named a little bit earlier has been helping the community.
Yes.
And making things better for both the community and the next generation. Talk a little bit about that.
To me, that's sort of at the core of who I am.
Yeah.
For a very simple reason. Everything that I do is because someone has poured effort, love, attention, direction into me. And I've always felt that I need to give back. I mean, it's not a question of whether I should do it or not. It's a matter of, this is who I am. This is how I was raised, and this is how I've raised my children. This is what I hope to also instill in my grandchildren, because we are part of the collective environment. We're not just, Vickie Turner living in San Diego. There is a much broader world, and I think starting out with being the child of a military family, I saw that. The world is so much bigger than just who we are. And we're just a small part of it, trying to make it better. And I think that's why I want to serve. And it's been part of just about everything I've done, from creating our own family foundation to teach my children philanthropy. Charitable giving is a very important part of our society. It's part of why I developed the Links to STEM program. It really has been part of everything that I do, and it's the thing that gives me the most joy.
Very good, very good. Powerful. I'm thinking a lot about mindsets, skill sets, and behaviors, right? Leadership mindsets, helping out the community, leadership skill sets. What would you say, collaboration being one of those skill sets that we've talked about, what would you say are, reading the room would be another skill set. What would you say are two more skills that you view as important for leaders watching this podcast to develop?
I think it's important for you to develop the ability to inspire people. So if I have a vision, what I am tasked with doing is making sure that someone else who may not have that vision can understand it, and that's by very clearly explaining what that vision is and then bringing them into the fold. So I always look at it as I have to clearly describe what my vision is, and then I have to motivate you to want to join me in that vision, or I have to get a shared vision. My vision can be changed.
Right.
Let's work together on doing that. But I think it's just important to make people feel that they are part of the process. That's how you get people to agree to things that maybe they never even considered.
Yeah. Very good. Which means you have to really listen and listen to understand their vision versus trying to. I was working with this leader years ago, and the leader talked about his training was to try to get people to come up with the answers that he would come up with, right? And I was like, no, that's not what we're talking about, right?
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly. And then also to empower them. I mean, once you come up with a shared vision, then you have to empower other people to reach their heights to make that vision a reality. It's not that, okay, here's my vision, we're going to do it this way, and when it's all said and done, I'm taking all the credit for it. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that I know I will be credited with is when things don't work. That much I know. The buck stop will right here.
That's right.
But along that journey, the people who helped me have to feel that they are empowered to be their best selves as well. You know, it's one of the things that when we began creating the culture in our law firm that we thought was really important. So we wanted to create an environment in which young lawyers, in particular women, would feel that if they wanted to take maternity leave or if they needed to take time off and take care of aging parents or whatever life might bring, that they felt empowered to do so, that they knew their choices would be respected, and that we would make accommodations where possible. But most importantly, that when they came back, they'd have a seat at the table. So to me, it is really making sure that everyone who's part of the process feels important and respected.
Yeah, so good. Can you talk some more about, as a woman in the leadership roles that you have been in, and I would imagine that in many of those roles it was leading leaders, right? What have been some of the key, I'll say, challenges and strategies as a woman in the multiple leadership roles that you've played? And this is going to be a different, totally additional podcast, y'all, because I know.
Well, I will tell you, I think one of the most challenging things, particularly as a young woman and then a woman of color, has been to really, it's a fine line that you're walking. So you want to get people to respect you, but you can't do that with a heavy hammer. So I think part of the process is sort of being yourself and letting your actions speak for you when you are trying to get people on board, but also not being a pushover. And what I mean by that is, and it took me a long time to get to this point, I would sometimes hear my suggestion or my proposal repeated by someone after I'd said it. And I would sit there and it would just burn me. And internalizing it wasn't helping at all. What I will do now, and this is something that as you have more experience, you're able to do, I will say, you know, that's a great idea. And when I presented that to you last week, we talked about blah, blah, blah. Or I will say, that's an interesting concept. And when I suggested it 5 minutes ago, and then we'll go from there. It will not be an in-your-face type of thing, but it is a way of letting the room know and the people know that you are leading, but you are not doing it in an antagonistic way. You are part of the process. You want to move forward. And to me, that was one of the biggest challenges, was having a voice and understanding that my voice should be heard, even if it seems like someone else was taking part of that voice away. Don't let them do that.
Don't let it do it. It reminds me of, was it Maxine Waters' Reclaiming My Time?
Exactly.
Right? But it's reclaiming my voice and reclaiming my idea when that mansplaining shows up, right?
and you know, it usually was a male, but I will tell you in more recent times, it happens with both sexes. Yeah, I mean, a good idea seems to be fair game for everybody.
Across the board, right?
Yes.
But it's so good because, to your point, it's because also what I heard in what you said was by reclaiming your voice, you also communicated that you were aware that someone else was trying to, right, run with it, take
Exactly.
it, co-opt it, corrupt it, all the words,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that you were naming that as well.
That's right, and I wasn't walking home with a soon-to-be ulcer because I had put it out there.
Yes.
It's no longer part of my internalization,
Yes.
and I felt better about it, no matter what happened from that point.
Wow. Mental health. How have you managed that balance over the years around your own mental health? You talked ulcer, right? Like breathing, centering. Like, how have you managed that mental health component in your
Well,
life?
I've mentioned part of it already, which is family. I think it's really important to have a good family base if you can. And if you don't, for example, here in town, I don't have a large family in San Diego, so you have an extended family. People that can support you and you can go and simply be yourself. I mean, that is really important. Exercise is huge. I've gone through, different stages of, I want to do bicycling or I want to skate or run or whatever it is. I think, certainly keeping that experience of exercising is very important. But also having the mentors that you can talk to whenever things are going well or not going well has been huge. But to me, family and friendship are just essential. And you can find those in so many different ways. But you can't find them if you're not willing to put yourself out. So you can't have a friend if you won't be a friend. So to me, that has been... It's what keeps me grounded. It's that 103-year history of family. It is having 3 sons and now almost 8 grandchildren. But it's also being very open to people that I meet. It may not have any relationship, but we develop them. I have a good friend right now, and she'll love the fact that I said this, that I met 2 years ago, almost 3 now, on a cruise in the Caribbean. And we're talking, we realized that we actually live a couple of streets away from each other, and we just had a lot in common and started talking and walking. She probably doesn't know much about my professional career at all because it's not important to her and to our relationship. So my mental health is usually based on friends, family, exercise, and I like to line dance.
Watch out. You heard the invitation, ladies and gentlemen. That is awesome. So if I see you with a fan.
I will be the one online who's messing up, okay? You can't be good at everything.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. So let's go back to 13 schools before high school. What from that experience informs your leadership today?
To me, it makes you much more aware of who you are because you've got a lot of downtime, just you. But also the fact that relationships are fleeting to a certain extent because most of my friends would be moving on just like I knew I would be moving on. But it doesn't mean that your relationships are superficial. It just means that you have to find ways to hold on to them even after they are no longer physically with you. That was one of the things I think made it normal for me. I mean, I knew I would be moving. They knew. My friends knew they would be moving. But also it gave me a sense that I was such a small part of this bigger world out there. I got to see places. At one point I had a Southern accent or a Texas accent because I was influenced by the environment in which I lived. But it also made me able to communicate and get along with a variety of people with totally different backgrounds, different mindsets, different cultures, different religions, because you have to when you are sort of thrust into an environment where everything is changing, people are changing. But to me, that's what life is all about. I know that when my children were born and we decided to stay here, my husband was in the Air Force also when we first got married. So he got out of the Air Force, and we talked a long time about, do we want to keep sort of moving around? And I was concerned that if we lived in one location, that my children would be one-dimensional, that they would grow up with one mindset and not realize how big the world is and where they fit into that process. So what we decided to do was we raised them here in San Diego, but we traveled a lot. We traveled constantly. Every year, a couple of times a year, we would take them somewhere to see something different, to experience something different. And I remember when my youngest son was a junior in high school, we went on a trip to South Africa along with Dr. Shirley Weber.
Yes.
And we took different things that we could help students with. So we each had to take, there were 32 of us, we each had to take a big suitcase. The suitcase would be filled with all sorts of school equipment. And then we went to work in schools there that didn't have running water, that didn't have electricity. And it was eye-opening to see the students run up to you. And I asked one little girl, did she like school? And she said she loves school. And, I inquired a little further, and she said, because I'm the chosen one. Some of her brothers and sisters wouldn't be going to school. It wasn't required. But she was chosen to be there. And that experience was, I think, life-changing for my son, who had grown up certainly traveling, but it's one thing to live with and see different people and understand the benefits that you have. And I didn't want any of my children to grow up thinking they were better than anyone else just because they may have had some luxuries that maybe someone else didn't have. So to me, even starting back to when I was a little girl growing up all over the country, that was what was important. That's what I gathered out of being the child that moved all the time, is that there are so many amazing people and things to see and things to do in the world that you just need to know you're just part of that. No better than anybody else, no worse than anybody else.
Yeah. And that there are many chosen ones.
Exactly. So, my son came back to the United States with a whole different vision. He's going to school, that's what he did. Not thinking before that some children don't have that opportunity. And so when he went to college, he went on and he did Doctors Without Borders. So he worked in Guatemala. He continued that passion once he came back. And to me, that is becoming part of the world. That's what I want my children to be.
It's so powerful. It reminds me of, we did a lot of work with Honda over the years, and they had a saying which was going to the spot. And it's the idea that you need to leave where you are and go to the location of the customer or the community or the stakeholder that you want to understand.
Yes.
Right? And you doing that with your children around understanding that there's a world out there, and we have to get outside of San Diego to travel and see and experience, right, beyond our own realities.
Absolutely.
That's powerful when I think about it as a leadership mindset, right? That to me, that can translate to, in organizations, leave our department and go to another department, right, and see and experience what's going on there, and then bring that back to ours as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because it's something that we have, at least I've experienced in our STEM program. I cannot teach robotics. I can't teach rocketry. I can't teach most of the things that we are teaching our students, and I don't understand many of them.
Yes.
But what I can do is bring together people who will collaborate with me and will be able to show our children a much broader world than I could do individually.
So good. I often ask guests what's their superpower. I think collaboration, you have made clear,
Yes.
is one of your superpowers.
I like to think so.
Yes. Name another.
Organization.
Okay.
So one of the things that I pride myself on, and most people comment on, is the ability to do a lot of different things in a short period of time. I make decisions fairly quickly. I get as much input as possible. But once I have made a decision and once I've done my collaboration, someone still has to bring all of the pieces together. And that is organizing to move the group forward. So when I look at, and the perfect example is our Links to STEM program. So we started out with a handful of 5 or 6 people who were helping me with the idea just to develop it. Then as we began to go forward, I needed people to implement the idea. I needed the scientists, the engineers, the teachers, the data analysts. So now it was my job to bring all of those people forward and to then organize what we are doing. So everyone knows this is your role, this is when you're going to, be on, so to speak. This is what the students are going to do, the parents understand. But somebody, and that has been me for the last 12 years, has organized everything so that there's no hiccup, so to speak. And when there is, I have to be there to fix it and make it run smoothly.
Very good, very good. So not only collaborating and bringing you folks together, but then organization, which is kind of dance floor operational, kind of leader manager, right? And making sure both are moving. What's not in the playbook?
I'm not sure what isn't in the playbook, because most of what I've talked about, probably if you were to read a book, isn't there. To me, the most significant of all of this is to not be afraid. That may sound crazy. Don't be afraid to do things that you find uncomfortable and to step out of that comfort zone as often as you need to in order to move forward.
That's good.
I think people just need to be focused and committed and authentic.
Got it. Focus, committed, and authentic.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. I'm thinking of, and you might have just answered this question, so tell me. The student leader, the new leader early in their profession, their career, and the more seasoned leader. One for each of them.
Yeah. So I look at my leadership as being on this interesting trajectory. So now, as what I consider to be a seasoned or executive leader, I think my role should be visionary. And I should come up with plans along with collaboration with those people to develop the plan. But the implementation of that plan, that's that middle group.
Got it.
The sort of, some people would call it middle management. That's who's going to be more hands-on. Certainly they are going to be motivating the people who are that younger student level that's actually doing the actual work, so to speak. So I look at it as three different phases. We have you're starting out, you're learning, you are certainly important to the process, but you're much more of an assignment person. Then middle management becomes the person that's motivating the student leader, but also hands-on, very much hands-on. Then executive or more seasoned leader is now motivating that middle person that you were at some point and serving as a mentor for that person to carry out the vision of the collective body.
Very good. It is clear to me that Vicki and I can go on for another hour. I can't believe it has been a full episode at this point in time, which feels like it occurred in the blink of an eye. Vicki, thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing your wisdom, sharing your lessons, your mindset, skill sets, and those behaviors that you've discovered throughout your journey. So really, really appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for the invitation. It has been amazing experience. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you all for staying and connected and tuning in to this entire podcast. Really appreciate your time and value your energy as well. We are committed at the LeaderSHYFT Secret podcast to continue to bring you top leaders where we have the opportunity to have dynamic conversations like the one we just had with Vicki in order to uncover the future of effective leadership. Thank you all very much. We'll see you soon.